Hey crew, Coach Josh here with GarageGangGyms.com, and when it comes to nutrition, you know you need to prep your food. And food sucks if it doesn't taste very good. So I highly recommend you get yourself a pellet grill and upgrade your food prep game. Hey crew, today we're talking about the Z-Grill 700D6 Pro and why I think it is the best bang for your buck of any of the pellet grills. So today in this video, we're gonna cover just some simple specs about this thing, why I think it's the best, certain fixes, how to actually turn it on, how to cook with it, how to clean it, and how to take care of it. And then some, again, upgrades and accessories that I've gotten to make this thing, in fact, the best. It isn't perfect by any means. We're gonna be covering a lot of things that I love about it, some things I wish that they would change, but for the price, it gives you the most features possible for that price. And I love it so much after having it for a few months now that I'm actually affiliated. So if you end up liking this Z-Grill that I talk about, or any of the Z-Grills or any of the accessories that I get, if it has the Z-Grill stamp on it, I do have an affiliate link and I do get commission if you buy that. So thank you in advance if you guys do that. But again, I genuinely think that the Z-Grill is the best, this model specifically. And here's why. I compared it to things like the Pit Boss of similar models and similar price range. I also compared it to the Traeger Pro 22, because that's a similar model. Now, I did not want Wi-Fi. So this thing does not have Wi-Fi. I think it makes people complacent that, you know, you do an overnight cook and you're not really paying attention to it. Oh, you'll get the alarm when your house is on fire. I didn't really like that. So I made sure I got one without Wi-Fi because I want to be checking it. I want to be looking at the probes, and it too comes in the box. I do want to be looking at the monitor to see what is going on inside. If there's a fire, I need to be there. Now, I still walk away from this from time to time for 10, 15, 20 minutes, especially if I'm doing things like jerky. I'm not just standing in front of it. But again, I didn't want the Wi-Fi because I didn't need it. I wanted to physically have to get up and go look at it. So again, price-wise, I really love this thing because it comes with a cabinet. A lot of the pellet grills in this price range actually don't come with a cabinet. They're more of a cart style. Maybe there's a shelf, but it's not great. So inside of here, you know, it's very spacious. I've got tin foil, I've got my barbecue gloves, I've got a grill brush that I'll be talking about later. I've got my inserts for my grease can. I've got my probes in there and some heat-resistant gloves, as well as my other grilling gloves inside of there, and there's still space. All the stuff that I need is in there, because again, I didn't want to have a, you know, a bin inside, run inside, get it, come back, and do a hassle with that. So the cabinet was really important to me. Another thing that was really important was the hopper size. Now, it turns out it doesn't really matter that I have a 22-pound hopper with this thing. You know, it takes an entire bag of pellets. But what is important is that it can hold quite a bit. So if you are looking to do a longer cook, you know, a 10, 12-hour cook, the 22-pound hopper, it's an entire bag of pellets. You should be totally fine. All right, so size-wise, right? People care about the size. So instead of saying, oh, it can, you know, it has 500 and whatever square inches, that doesn't matter, right? How do you visualize that? So some of the cooks that I've done on here, and I've done quite a few, I've done whole chickens, I've done half chickens, I've done chicken breasts, I've done 5 racks of ribs will actually fit in here. You'll put 4 on the low and 1 on the top. I've done wings. I've done 3 pounds of jerky. So if you get really thin strips of jerky, this will do a little over 3 pounds, like 3 and 2 ounces, right? So not quite a quarter, but you can do quite a bit of jerky on here. This, for my family of 4, is more than enough. And for food prep, which is again why I think you should get a grill like this, you know, I can do 2 whole chicken breasts, which I'll actually be cooking on camera for you guys here in a little bit. And on top of that, I can be food prepping potatoes, or I can actually have a skillet of Brussels sprouts in the corner. And maybe on top, I'm grilling some corn, which, by the way, if you haven't had grilled corn, is amazing. I can actually do 3 full racks of ribs and 6 ears of corn all at the same time. There's plenty of space for a family of 4, even if I have a few people over. So if I were entertaining 12, I would certainly need a bigger one. Now, what I didn't realize until I got this thing is one of the features that is amazing is the drip tray. And when I show you how to clean this thing at the end of this video, the drip tray is so important because other grills, they do have a drip tray, but some of their features make the drip tray rust, or maybe you're removing the drip tray too often. And again, you get some rust, and I'm thinking of the Pit Boss here. We'll talk more about some of the downfalls in a second, but the Pit Boss allows you to actually open up and expose the flame so that if you're wanting to sear something, you certainly can, or sear it at a higher temperature. The problem is in almost every video I've seen, there's rust all over that thing. Why? Because you're putting, your food directly on this thing. It's getting grease all over, and you can't really clean it that well, so it gets really rusty. And I don't know about you, but I don't really want to eat rust. All right, so again, accessories that came with this thing are 2 meat probes. Traeger only sends 1, even though they have 2. Traeger's already more expensive. Doesn't this look like a Traeger Pro 22? Because it kind of is, right? I almost bought myself a Traeger, and then as I was doing more research, I started thinking to myself, man, I feel like I'm just paying extra money for the name and not really getting a whole lot for that. And there was really no way, there wasn't any evidence that convinced me that their product was so much better. Now, I will say when compared to a Pit Boss, I have heard that Pit Boss's grills are a little bit thicker steel, but you really don't have to worry about the thickness of the steel. It hasn't warped in the months that I've used it. I've cooked on it literally 30 times. And I haven't had any problems. I've had it all the way cranked up to 450 degrees, which is a cool feature of this thing. I've had it cook for 6 hours at a time. It's not warping on you. Okay, so let's talk about some of the negatives of this grill, and then I'll actually turn it on for you. So much like all of the grills at this price range, there is no shelf that comes with it. So you'll see here, and I'll have this link below, I actually have a folding shelf that I got that attaches to the barrel of this, and it gives me a shelf. I certainly could use the hopper over here. I just hate the idea of putting something that's greasy or wet on top of the hopper where all of the pellets are, and what's gonna happen? You know what's gonna happen. It's all gonna dump inside of that hopper. So again, you can put stuff on the hopper. I just try not to as best I can. Of course, every once in a while I do set something there, but again, I did get this shelf and it's linked down below. Another thing that I got was actually an insulator blanket. All right, it's actually from Z-Grill. And the reason being, I live in central Minnesota, so it gets really cold. Sometimes it's 20 below. And if it's not windy, I want to grill. And everywhere I read said you should really get one of these insulator blankets. And what's cool about it is it really doesn't take much to get it on. It's just a Velcro, I throw it over. It'll actually magnetize to the back, which of course it did as I was swinging it around. Then it just loops over the handle. And it just loops over the handle, push the Velcro down and through, gets tight, then you don't have to worry about it going anywhere. And then it magnetizes to the back here, like that. So now it's insulated, right? So not only is it gonna help in the winter, but supposedly it helps me save on pellets. And that's actually why, a big reason why I bought this thing, is I made the bad mistake, and if you're new to pellet grills, do not spend more than about $12 on a bag of pellets. I was spending $30 thinking, oh, this is 100% blah, 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 blah. And it turns out that I could just go to my local hardware store, get the exact same brand. So I like Lumberjack. Exact same brand, Lumberjack, get my cherry wood that I use for my pork and my chicken for $10.49, and on Amazon, because I thought, oh, it's cheaper on Amazon, I was spending over $30. So whoever you are out there, that you're buying it from your local hardware store, selling it on Amazon for a $20 markup, wow, okay? So I swindled myself. I didn't do the research, I was lazy, right? I was like, oh, this is the best stuff. Oh, it's on Amazon, cool, it's $30. And then I realized, wow, I'm going through a lot of wood and this is really expensive. Well, yeah, it is when you're paying 3 times as much. Now, actually, speaking of pellets, I do not recommend Traeger. I actually don't recommend Pit Boss. Why? Some of their blends use wood oils for flavor. Strange. Some of them use binding agents, glue, in their wood. It's not 100%. They might say natural, but like in the food world, natural doesn't mean anything, okay? It's just a word you can put on, and the FDA isn't really saying much. And again, natural means nothing. So it's 100% natural. Is it? Well, the wood oil is actually from wood, okay? And the glue we use is, natural. We use horse hooves, whatever. No, it's not something I want my family consuming, is burnt oil or even burnt glue, right? Binding agents, none of that stuff. So again, with Lumberjack, what's really cool about it is it's 100% whole hardwood. That's it. So if it's cherry wood, it's cherry wood. If it's oak, and I love them both, okay? So again, be careful when you're buying your pellets. So another accessory, and kind of a knock on the Z-Grill, I'm actually gonna spin this around. So as I'm doing it, you know, I'll highlight the fact there's 4 caster wheels on here. Traeger usually only has 2 like turf looking tires, and then it's on pegs. So it's a cart style. So it's kind of hard to maneuver. Same with Pit Boss. So with this, I just spin her around. Okay, so I ended up actually getting some cable holders here. So this is the main power cable, and it was meant to just kind of lay on the ground, I guess. You know, maybe they meant for you to put it on top here. I hate that. I don't want it touching the floor. So I ended up getting these Velcro cable management so that I could wrap it and cover it up. I also got some plug covers for it too, because even though it's not that big of a deal, I just am thinking I want to keep this grill as nice as I can for as long as I can. Then I also got one for the extension cord. I went really beefy on my extension cord, and I'll actually leave a link in the description. It's an outdoor, you know, make sure you get a good extension cord, because this is electric, right? It's basically a convection oven that uses wood as your heat source. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. You get the smoke, but you also get a fan, so it keeps your cooks so consistent, right? And that goes for all pellet grills. Now again, I keep the extension cord here because it's just so convenient. I don't have to run inside, find an extension cord and do things like that. Another issue is actually the clean out spout. So, you know, here's the hopper, you put the wood pellets in, and I'll actually show you when I'm cleaning this out, going through the whole process. But like most of them, including Traeger and Pit Boss, they just have this open spot here. The problem with that is, even if you put the bucket, and I have a special bucket and I'll cover that when I'm actually lighting this thing up, the pellets go all over the place, because as they come down the spout, they just launch, right? So I ended up having to get kind of a ramp or a chute, kind of like a funnel that actually magnetizes on here, so you can kind of see that's where I'll put it, so that it kind of guides them into the bucket a little bit more. And then I ended up buying this plastic poker, which again, I'll link all this in the description, so that I can actually dig out the pellets a little bit easier, because sometimes they do get jammed. But again, it's more for my sanity's sake. Most people leave their pellets in here, but for me, after every single cook, I'm taking those pellets out. It's been humid. I mean, we had like 3 days of not 90% humidity here in Minnesota lately, and it's been 4 months of humidity. And the last thing I want to do is get those pellets humid, and then they puff up and they're really dry. They'll just light like crazy in that fire pot inside, right? Because we're burning wood in order to get the heat. Or the auger that actually rotates to advance the pellets into the burn pot, which I'll show you as we're cleaning this later. So if you want to see that, you can actually jump ahead, because it's all timestamped below. But it's going to gum up and get caught inside of that auger, and it's not something I want to deal with, because talk about a fire. Now, speaking of fire, I have had one fire, and it was totally my fault. I had a lot more grease fires with my gas grill in the past, and that's really why I wanted to get one of these, is because there's far less fires. Totally my fault. I made jerky, and the drip tray I hadn't cleaned in like 8 cooks. So there's quite a bit of grease on it. I did jerky, which is like a slow, low cook for 2-3 hours, and it dripped onto the tray. And then what I did is took the jerky off, I warmed everything up, and then I was making burgers and hot dogs. So again, pretty greasy. And then afterwards, instead of what I should have done, which knowingly there was so much grease on this drip tray, which I know now, is to let it cool down a little bit or go through its full off cycle before actually getting my water out and scrubbing the grates, because I'll show you that too when I'm cleaning. What happened was the water hit the grease, you know, caught fire, and I had a little bit of a fire. But the cool thing was I didn't panic. All I did was put it into shutdown mode. I closed the lid, which you should do too. I walked away from it. I made sure I had my hose just sitting out just in case something happened. There was no issues, because what's cool is these grills, not only do they turn themselves on, but they turn themselves on and they use off. They use their fan to actually extinguish that flame. And the last accessory that I want to talk about is, as you'll notice, most grills come with a grease bucket. I opted out of the grease bucket. I actually got something called the grease box, and I highly recommend this to you. And again, this is something I'm affiliated with as well. But just like with the Z Grill, I bought it with my own money, and then after loving it, I reached out and said, hey, I want to tell people about this. And they said, great, we'll make you an affiliate. Your affiliate link is below. It's not going to make it cost any more to you, but if you do end up buying it, I do get a commission. So I do want you to know that. But this 18 gauge steel box is just a box that slips in. So again, usually you have a bucket, you flick that thing and it's falling off. Some of the other solutions, some that you can buy on Amazon, they have like a chute that goes into the bucket. I bought one of those. I actually spent $70 on one and I wasn't happy with it. The insert they sent me wasn't silicone, it was tinfoil. The bucket itself was smaller than they said. The mechanism itself, they said it would twist on and off, didn't. And because of that, because it just slid in, it actually folded the tinfoil insert over. Then it just made this little void where all of the grease would collect, not in the bucket, but kind of off to the side. And then I got a heck of a grease stain on the ground. And again, I spent $70 thinking it was gonna be the fix. What I should have done is just got the grease box. So this actually will hold 2 times the quantity of, or that volume of your bucket. I also bought a rubber insert, so the silicone insert, that is designed specific for this, so it guides all of the grease into this bucket, so you can kind of see that. And again, it actually came with 2. It does cost a little extra than just buying the grease box itself, but you can actually take it out, you can rinse it off, you can, you know, throw the grease over your fence like I do, and if you want, you can actually put it in the dishwasher. Top shelf or top rack, it actually works really well. But it will fit a tinfoil insert inside of this bucket or this box as well if you don't want to get the inserts, okay? Totally up to you, but again, for convenience sake, I do recommend you get the silicone insert. But really easy to install. I did an entire review video on this grease box, so if you want to see that and see how easy it is, there's only 5 screws on, but it's solid as a rock. It's flush to the grill. It works great. And again, the grease box just simply slides in and you don't have to worry about grease ever getting on your patio. And again, I've got a heck of a grease stain because of the first fix that I bought that unfortunately they're not even refunding my money. I can't even get a hold of them. Again, buyer beware. If you want to see that video, it's also on my YouTube channel. So again, let's fill this thing up. Let's plug it in. Let's get started. Because I have everything back here, again, it's really convenient. So I'm just going to pull the plug. What I'll do is I just take one loop out because where my outlet is, it's just too far from my extension cord. And I don't like to have a lot of tension on my extension cord because I got kids going in and out of the patio, which is just off camera here. And you know, if my 3-year-old or my 1-year-old is running, you know, barefoot through the patio, they're not looking at these extension cords, which I'm struggling with today because I'm talking to you. They don't look for the extension cords and, you know, of course they just trip on it. So I like to let it just kind of drape on the floor. And again, the patio is just off camera. So I'd like to slip it under the patio door here. All right. And again, I normally actually have my grill a little closer to the patio, but for camera's sake, I have it where I have it. So let's just move that over a little. All right, there we go. Now they won't trip on it. And then the next thing is the pellets. So again, I'm using my Lumberjack 100% cherry because I'm going to be doing some chicken breasts today. And again, I'm showing you how to turn it on, how to cook, using my probes, the whole 9 yards, how to clean it, how to store it, all of those so that if you guys are getting a pellet grill or you want this specific grill, you see exactly how I do it. So I'm actually using an Oklahoma Joe's bucket. For $30, you really don't have to get these buckets. Not that I'm affiliated or not with them, it doesn't matter. Inside, what's cool though, is not only is this, you know, airtight so that your pellets stay dry, but it does come with a screened bucket. That way there isn't a bunch of sawdust going into your hopper, which, you know, is beneficial, but do we really need it? I don't know. I forgot to close this chute. It's a good thing I saw the light. I see the light. So I'll just throw, you know, that much in. It's way too much for what I'm doing. But most important thing when you're starting your pellet grill, open the lid, okay? So what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna click this on and then smoke mode. There we go. So the fan kicked in. So while this is going, there's a lot of settings on this. So there's smoke mode, which I thought, because it's the first notch, actually was cooler. But turns out it's not. What it does is it optimizes how much smoke is coming out. So what it'll do is it feeds in some pellets and then draws back, feeds in, draws back. Every time it feeds in pellets, the flame gets hotter. But as it pulls back on how many pellets are going in, the flame starts to die off, and that's where the smoke is generated. So when I was first making my first batch of beef jerky, I screwed up and thought that, oh, smoke mode, man, I want to keep it as, 160 if I can. Well, it turns out smoke mode on average is more like 240, just as it's fluctuating, maybe it's more like 220. And all of a sudden my beef jerky tasted like bark, okay, because it just got too smoky, and I thought, oh, I'm supposed to cook jerky for 3 hours. Well, I'm an idiot. So anyway, smoke is the first setting, and that's how it's going to feed. It's going to start, but it actually can go as low as 180 degrees. Now, I have found that on a windier day like today, it doesn't do a great job of staying at 180 because the wind kind of snuffs it out a little bit, so it feeds a little too many pellets in. And it generally stays at about 2 to 205, which is normal to be about 20 degrees off at those lower settings if you're dealing with wind. But on a perfectly calm day, it's 180 on the button. But every 25 degrees you have a notch for, and then all the way up to 375. Today I'll be cooking my chicken at about 325 because I want it to take a while. And then the high setting, you would think it's only 400 degrees, but I've seen it as high as like 465, 485, something like that. Because when I was first burning in this grill, which is something you need to do, when you're first putting it together, it only takes about an hour to put this thing together, but it's about an hour and 45 before you can actually cook, because there's so many times you have to turn it on, make sure the auger's working, okay, turn it off. Okay, turn it on, make sure there's heat coming, okay, turn it off. And every time you turn it off, it goes through its shutdown cycle. And that shutdown cycle takes about 8 to 10 minutes every single time. And then you're slowly ramping up more and more until you eventually are putting pellets in, you're actually having it completely put together, you're waiting for it to smoke, and then you crank it all the way to high and let it cook for 45 minutes to an hour. So that's that burn-in time. Now I'm starting to smell smoke, so that means that the auger is engaged, it's sent some pellets in. What we're waiting for is you'll start to see some white smoke, and it's just starting to come. A really thick, heavy white smoke. And once that white smoke is gone, then I can close the lid and set the temperature. Because again, we're just initially waiting for it to get started. So again, the wind is kind of keeping it so you can't really see the white smoke, but we're waiting for it to turn clear. If we had the lid closed when it's the white smoke like this, it's going to actually combust. You can hear a loud pop. Some people, they burn their grills down because they haven't cleaned it and things like that. But if you stay on top of cleaning it, you shouldn't have a problem. Now, speaking of cleaning, because again, we're waiting for this to kick on, I clean this every about 10 hours that I cook. So, if I'm doing ribs, that's about 3 hours. If I'm doing, chicken breast, it's about an hour, hour and a half, because I like to cook it slow. If I'm doing burgers, it's 20 minutes, just like it always is with a gas grill. There's the smoke. Now you can definitely see it. So again, every 10 or so hours. Now, I actually waited a little bit longer because I knew I was going to do this video and I was lazy. So again, I'm a little bit past that. It's not going to be a problem. And I will show you how I actually clean this. It's very easy. I just use tin foil and a brush and a vacuum cleaner. Josh, you use a vacuum cleaner? Yeah, because you are burning wood, there's going to be some soot. And that's really what we're trying to get out of there. Because if you leave the soot too long, now you can hear it roaring. Hopefully you can hear that on the microphone. If you leave the soot on there too long, soot does combust, right? Because it is just basically sawdust that's preheated, right? All right, so if you can see, hopefully you saw when it was really white. Now it's very clear and you can just hear that roar, right? So it's roaring really well. So now I can close the lid and I'm gonna set it to 325 degrees. Right in there, and then it's going to warm up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go inside, I'm gonna get my chicken ready, and then I'll come back before I put it on the grill and show you that the 2 probes that it comes with is a game changer, right? Again, other grills don't actually come with 2 probes. Some of them have 2 probe ports, but they only give you 1 probe. Why? They're trying to maximize the profit and not necessarily their usability or their user friendliness. So again, I'll be back once it's heated up, which will only take about 5-10 minutes, and I'll have the chicken ready for the grill. All right, so the grill's still actually warming up, but it just didn't take me that long to get the chicken ready. So the probes, and again, a really cool thing, if I'd keep it more organized, is the fact that this has a cabinet, because my probes are just right here. Now, funny enough, these probes are only $15, right? $20, whatever. And some companies just opt not to give them to you, or they only give you 1, which is really strange. 15 bucks, just give us 2. If you've got 2 ports, give us 2 probes. How hard is that? Now again, these are not Wi-Fi, and I purposefully want that. because it's gonna force me to at least check on these a little bit. But again, these just plug in to the control box right there. Now, I like to use my finger, right, to kind of figure out how deep into the chicken breast I need to go. And then when my finger hits that spot, that's where I stop. It can be tricky for some people to find kind of dead center, but you know, I'll just actually grab the raw chicken breast, and it actually has a bone, so I kind of know where I'm going. I'm gonna end up somewhere in here with my finger, so I'm just gonna kind of slide that in. And we can see that, yep, it's, you know, 62 degrees and dropping, so it's even cooler than that, which it should be because I haven't had it sitting out that long. And again, this is gonna just help keep my eye on, somewhere in there, where my temperatures are. So again, I'll come out here, yeah, 60 degrees. I'll come out here and make sure I'm checking, oh, where's my temperatures at? Now, when I'm doing chicken breasts on the bone like this, I'm always thinking food prep, which is again, part of what this video is all about. And I'll give you some more tips on food prepping here as I'm going. And I'll always do one extra chicken breast. So we're doing chicken breast and buttered noodles. I've got a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old. We're gonna eat buttered noodles. It's not a big deal. What I will do is wait until this chicken is up to like 172 internal temp. Now 160 is where it's considered healthy and it's safe to eat, but I found a little bit warmer, it actually shreds a lot easier. And then what I'll do with the other chicken breast is shred it. That way in the future we could make, you know, fajitas, or we can make a salad, or if we do more, so if I were to do 4 of these today, we would take 2 whole chicken breasts and turn it into like a chicken noodle soup or something like that. So when it comes to food prepping, anytime you cook food, cook at least 1 additional meal with it. Now, if I needed to, I could put at least 8 chicken breasts on here. Actually, with the top rack, I could put 10 or more chicken breasts. That's so much chicken, I don't necessarily need that. But if we weren't having broccoli, which I'm actually just cooking in the steamer bag in the microwave today, I would have a skillet out here, maybe some Brussels sprouts. In the past, what I'll do is I'll take whole potatoes, slice them down the middle, put a little avocado oil and some salt, and just put them face down on the grates. By the time the chicken is about 100 degrees, I'll put them on. That way, between 100 and 170, it's about 40 minutes, and the potatoes are actually done really well. And with the Brussels sprouts, it's just the perfect combination. And again, if you're making, you know, 4 potatoes for your family, make 8, and then you have extra for later, okay? I never recommend cooking for more than about 3 meals at a time. Some people, you know, on a Sunday, they'll make, you know, chicken and rice and broccoli and make huge pots of crap. And I used to do that. I used to actually boil chicken, which is disgusting, but I would do it 5 pounds at a time, and I would make food for the whole week. But man, by about Wednesday, you're so sick of leftovers, no matter how different you season the chicken, and it sucks, right? The rice is so old by that point. So I like to cook for maybe a day or 2 at a time, and I like fresh food. So even though I eat virtually the same thing for lunch every day, and it can be leftovers from time to time, I really like having fresh food. So any chance I can grill, I will. And my wife loves leftovers, especially when we're doing ribs. We'll do an extra rack, so she has 2 extra days of eating ribs for her lunch, because she's a teacher, right? She loves sitting down in the teacher's office, or whatever you call it. What is that? The lunchroom, I guess, whatever. And just eating on ribs or something like that, and seeing her other teachers that are eating carrots and celery trying to lose weight. And my wife is, you know, pretty ripped. And they're like, oh, you can eat that? Yeah, you can, when you prep and when you're ahead of the game, and then you don't have to be hungry, and then you don't snack later, right? Food prepping is so important. So now it actually warmed up past 325. So by the time I open the lid, put my chicken on, it'll actually cool back down to 325, and I can cook. So what I'll do is I'll just throw them on. Oh, hello. We'll do this one first. So real quick. Bloop. I know where the hot spots are in my grill. And in fact, it's just usually around the edges that it's warm, because that's where the heat's coming through because of the drip pan. The drip pan gets in the way of most of the heat, because what it's acting as is not necessarily a heat deflector, but more of a heat distributor, right? So there's over the fire pot, which you'll see when I'm cleaning it, there's this steel, like cast iron actually, thing that goes over the burn box, and that helps kind of radiate the heat out a little bit, instead of just having this big like hot spot and then really cold on the outskirts. And then above that is the drip tray, which goes towards the grease box here. to not only catch the grease, but it also helps act as that heat deflector as well. So it actually comes out and around. And then again, that fan is kind of keeping the entire grill nice and warm and pretty consistent. I've actually done what's called the biscuit trial, or whatever, a biscuit test, where I put a bunch of different like cheap biscuits around just to kind of see where my hot spots are. And most of the inside is the same temperature, and just around the edges where the drip tray isn't, where the heat can kind of escape out, that is where my hot spot is. So sometimes if I really need to cook something fast, like I forget to put hot dogs on for the girls and they're still frozen because I forgot to take them out, I'll throw them on the edges so that they can get cooked faster if we're making steak or hamburgers or whatever it is that we're doing. What's cool too is with that top grate, I thought for sure, I was like, oh, what a gimmick, all it's for is the buns. But no, because it's convection and there's that fan in there that's kind of circulating that heat, that top rack is viable. That's usually where I put my corn. I'll soak corn in the sink for about 10 minutes, right in the ear, right in the husk, and just pop them on that top rack so they're just out of the way. And after 40 minutes, maybe I'll turn them once, which you really don't have to, but maybe I'll turn them once. After 40 minutes, you can just peel that husk off right away. And what's cool is because you soaked the corn, it actually steams the corn. So you don't have to just boil it and guess, is it done? It will be done when that husk turns kind of like a grayish brown, right? If it turns black, it's a little done, okay? You need your smoke detector. But again, I'll do that especially when I'm doing like potatoes or something. What could be better than meat, potatoes, and corn? I don't know, okay? Nothing is better than that. And I love eating that. And I love having leftovers for that. Corn's a little funky. If you keep it on the ear, right, you definitely want to cut off the kernels, maybe put it into a container. But nothing pairs better than, cornbread muffins. Oh my gosh, my mother-in-law makes some great cornbread muffins. And baked beans, right? It's a barbecue. Make it taste great. And there's no reason, as long as you're tracking your food, right? I'm not saying you can put 2 racks of ribs down every day and you're not gonna be 900 pounds. But if you know, hey, I can have 6 ribs, I can have 3 mini cornbread muffins, I can put maybe this much beans on and an ear of corn and I'm good. That's enough macros, it's enough fats, proteins, and carbs that I need for the day, because that's what I had just the other week. You don't have to worry about getting fat because you are proactively tracking. You know, hey, I get to have 6 ribs with barbecue sauce, yum, and corn and cornbread and baked beans and broccoli, or I can't remember if we did broccoli or Brussels sprouts, doesn't matter. I think we did broccoli. But again, you get to eat like you're not dieting and you can still be fit. It's awesome, especially the amount of flavors you get from a grill like this is incredible. I can do jerky, right? So I can do low and slow. I can do ribs, I can do whole chickens, I can do chicken breasts, I've done brats, I've done hamburgers, I've done pork chops. What else have I done? We're gonna do spare ribs tomorrow. I haven't tried brisket yet, but I'm gonna next week because my brother-in-law is coming home. What else haven't I tried? I will try a prime rib on there. You could definitely do roasts on there. I definitely want to do a Thanksgiving turkey, because it's definitely big enough to put, a 15-pound turkey, maybe not one of those big Whoppers, right? I don't know where they come from. But I also want to try for Christmas with the prime rib, maybe some other type of vegetable. Maybe I'll even do like a sweet potato bake. We've actually baked in here as well. We've made brownies, and dude, a little bit of the cherry wood into that brownie, oh my gosh. Plus, we haven't tried this yet, but we want to do a s'mores bake, like a s'mores bar. Again, we will know what the macros are, we will know how much we can have, of course, but you can eat really good food and get that smoky, charry flavor you're looking for without having to just kill yourself with charcoal or something like that. But again, there is a negative to this grill, right? And that is the fact that it only gets up to 450-ish, maybe 485 when it's really, really roaring. Where if you're wanting to really sear a steak, you're not really able to sear a steak. So what do I do to fix that? I'll put a piece of cast iron, like a big skillet. I think it's a 16-inch skillet. I'll put that on there, let it warm up at that 450 to 485 degrees, put a little oil on and sear my steak the best I can after I've actually warmed it up to about 115. So it's called a reverse sear. So Pit Boss actually has, you take the grates out, there's like a lever you can pull, it exposes the fire of the burn box, and you can actually sear something right on there, or you can put the grates back on and then there's just that hot spot right under the grates. But again, as I was alluding to before, you have your meat dripping right into that burn box, right onto those grates. It's gonna get rusty. You're not gonna get it cleaned enough. And in 6 months, now you're eating rust no matter how much you clean it. So again, it is a feature, but it is also a problem. There are some more grills out there that are way more expensive. This was $700, $800, whatever it was. If you want to spend a few grand, yes, you can get some really cool features where, oh, we can expose this, we can do that, and we can get it seared really well, or you can get it hotter, but again, best bang for your buck, it's that Z grill. So I'm gonna let this cook for a while. I'll be back when it's done. Again, I'm gonna keep checking on those probes. I do always use an instant read thermometer, so I just have that sitting in my pocket, because even though the probes are there, the probes are only checking one spot. And if I happen to pin it just a little off center, I wanna make sure I'm checking around to make sure it is at that 160 at least. But again, I'm shooting for that like 172 so that it shreds a little bit easier. And that way my girls just love the flavor. It's gonna hold that moisture. It's gonna be really good. So again, I'll come back when this is a little bit closer to being done. So with the instant read thermometer, the first chicken breast was already done, which is why you cook by temperature and not by time, right? So many people, they read a recipe and it says 20-minute cook. Well, it could be 22, it could be 28, it could be 18. So it's really important that you guys use these probes that come with it and even double check with an instant read thermometer, just in case your probe isn't in the exact spot you want it. So let's pull this last one off the grill. Look at that. Oh my gosh, I'll give you a close-up. Look at this. Now I use a cherry wood, so the meat itself will be a little bit red, and it threw me for a loop the first time that I saw that. I made burgers, and I was like, I know it's cooked perfect, and I looked and I'm like, why is it so pink, right? Same with ribs, it really threw me off. And then I realized, oh, the cherry wood is dyeing it red. So let's pull these probes out. All right, now that my 10-year-old neighbor on a mini bike without a helmet on is driven by, I'll talk about cleaning the grates a little bit, and then I'll show you how to actually turn this thing off. So I'll just move this over to the side on the hopper. So I just use ice water with this Grill Daddy brush, and again, I'll have that linked for you. So I'm just going to steam it, right? And you can hear the steam. I'll go fast. And again, the grill's actually still on, which with this much buildup, I probably shouldn't have the grill still on, but I know it hasn't been too greasy, even with this cook, so I'm not too worried. So again, I just kind of halfway steam clean them a little bit. And then what's cool is I just flip this dial all the way over to off. The fan kicks in high gear, I close the lid, and then the fan inside is actually gonna make sure that that burn box disengages or it extinguishes the fire, so that I don't have to worry about this thing burning the house down, right? So I'm actually gonna go inside, I'm gonna shred up this chicken. We're having mac and cheese instead of buttered noodles, and my oldest daughter wants chicken quesadilla. So, you know, we're changing things a little bit, but that's all right. It's the life of having 2 toddlers. So I'll let this turn off, we'll go eat. I'll come back and show you how to clean this. Guys, so as you can see by this picture, it turned out great. Right? The chicken was really soft. We just did macaroni and cheese out of a box. I think we used that Ann's brand with the rabbit on it. You know, my girls loved their chicken quesadillas, and now we actually have some extra, and tomorrow we'll make some chicken tacos. So again, it's always important that when you're using your Z grill, you always make extra so you guys can always do extra and be, you know, ahead for meal planning. So again, now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how I clean this thing, okay? So again, I let the grease tray get a little extra buildup. And again, I usually am gonna clean this thing every 8 to 10 hours that I'm cooking on it, which is usually 5 or 6 cooks, right? The chicken only took about an hour, so I knew it was okay. But when I'm doing jerky, it's 2.5 hours. When I'm doing ribs, it's 3 hours, right? So again, 8 to 10 hours, I like to keep it clean, just so I can avoid any flare-ups or anything like that. Plus, your burn box, it can fill up with some soot, so it's really important to get ahead of that so that you don't accidentally have some type of like a combustion, right? Because there will be some buildup. The combustion is pretty unlikely, but there is some efficiency issues. Because again, as I pull this apart, I'll actually explain to you what's going on in order for this thing to actually operate. So what you'll need is a shop vac. I like to use some nitrile gloves so that I don't get my hands greasy, because things have some soot on it, some things have some grease on it. And then some heavy duty aluminum foil, because that's what I'm gonna do and line the grease tray with. So let me get those things out. Again, it's nice, it's all just in my cabinet here. So I know this stuff is gonna be kind of warm. So I'm actually gonna grab my grill gloves out, just because I would normally let this cool down a little bit longer, but I'm just gonna pull it out now. So these grill gloves are rated for some pretty high temps. So I'm just gonna set this over here off camera. And again, the grates, I steamed them as it was still warm. Again, oftentimes I might even run it through its off cycle before actually steaming them. It doesn't get as steamed because it actually will cool down a little bit, because that off cycle takes like 10 minutes. Let's pull this grease tray out. And again, you can see it's pretty full. And I'll show you, I'll pan down in a second. And I'll just take this heat dispenser out. Go set this over here as well. Yeah, that's clean. You know, blow on it a couple times. Okay, so I will show you just quickly how easy it is to switch the aluminum foil on this drip tray. And then I'll show you inside of the compartment so that I can identify some of these parts for you. So again, I'll keep these kind of handy. So again, I'm just using, how wide is this? 18-inch wide, heavy duty aluminum foil. It doesn't have to be grilling foil. In fact, I found some Reynolds wrap that's heavy duty aluminum, 18-inch, so that'll work just fine. So let's see if this is warm. It's not too bad. So let's get this camera pan down so you can see. All right. So again, as you can see, it's pretty gross. It's pretty warm, but I'll be all right. So I'm just gonna pull this aluminum foil off, right? Pretty easy. It's a little warmer than I thought it was, actually. But you can see how clean my tray actually stays. And oh, of course, doing this on camera, I get crumbs all over the ground. Well, I got my hose handy, so I'll just spray it off, or I'll just broom it off. But again, you can see I've cooked on it plenty of times. A little bit of surface rust is starting to develop. And again, that's really important to me to prevent any of that from getting in my food, which is why I also recommend using this aluminum foil. Yeah, that's clean. Right, okay. So then I just stretch a big strip. And I stretch enough that I can, you know, wrap it just like a leftover food, right? And then I'll actually show you on this side, don't blow away, there's just a little slot. You can see that. This little slot is what is guiding the grease into the grease box. So it's still important to keep that somewhat exposed. I mean, I still wrap it with foil. Let's wrap that real good. So I still wrap that with foil, just on the off chance that, you know, again, rust getting into the grease box. You know, I'm trying to keep things as clean as I can. Yeah, that's wrapped enough. Kind of bend it around there. And again, that's good enough for what I need it to do. So again, the grease tray is already clean. Again, unfortunately, I got a bunch of crumbs on the ground. But again, I'll clean that here in a second. But I'm going to move the camera so you can actually see inside of the grill compartment. So let's get that far. Make sure this is a good angle for you guys. There you go. All right. So this is the burn box right here, this circle right here. And if we kind of zoom in, it's pretty full of gunk, right, of soot. And you can see soot is everywhere. But what happens is the hopper, which is just off camera, there's an auger that spins slow, fast, depending upon how much it needs to increase the heat, and it drops these little pellets into this hole. And inside of the hole, there's just a little igniter. It's an electric igniter that once the pellets touch that igniter, they start to combust. Once they've smoked, they'll light on fire, and then you actually have a live fire in this burn pot. And again, soot comes up, and that's where the blast shield or the drip tray is so important. But again, every once in a while, I'll come in here and just vacuum this out real quick. It looks worse than it actually is. It's just all dry soot. But what's cool too is I've already got the extension cord out here, so I'm just stepping behind the grill, and I'll unplug that if I can reach. Unplug that, and then I just grab my shop vac, which is just off camera here. Just plug that in. It's gonna be loud. You're barely gonna be able to hear me, but I'll just vacuum this out quick. I'll probably even speed this process up. It only takes 10 seconds, but so you don't have to hear it. And what would every dad say? Wow, that sucks, right? Anyway, so you can see it doesn't take very long to vacuum it out. You know, and I have my shop vac, it's not very far from here. But something that people don't think about is over here, is this probe. Now, I'll use rubbing alcohol every 3 or 4 times that I've cleaned out the grill, because soot builds up on it and it can actually throw off this temperature gauge just a little bit, right? That's what tells your thermostat or your controller what the temperature is. So again, I'll just use some rubbing alcohol and just hit it real quick. I'm not doing that this time because I just literally did it the last time I cleaned, but you know, keep in mind you want to keep this probe nice and clean. So I'm just going to leave the camera here and I'm going to show you how easy it is to put this all back. So I'll get my gloves on because again, it's still kind of warm. Again, I didn't let it cool down all the way. I'm filming. I want to get it done. Okay, so this first piece is, again, it goes over the burn box and it's kind of a heat distributor, right? So there's these little fins on it that you just line it up, drop it down into the same fins that are down in here. So you're trying to do it without it squeaking, and then you just slide it in. Now it's nice and solid, and that sits over, again, the burn pot. Then this drip tray just slips in. There's a ledge over here on the left. Right, so there's a ledge over here. And then I'm just gonna check to make sure that this hole, is lined up with where the grease port is, just off camera a little bit. But you know, flatten this down just a little bit better so that the grease, again, can come off and into the grease box. And then these grates, I like to rotate them every time I've cleaned, just to make sure that they're getting even use, right? So I'll rotate them. That way, it's nice and clean. So literally, I mean, it took me longer to actually explain everything than it did to clean. So now what I'll do is I'll take my probes, throw them in the cabinet here, and then I'll get the stuff that I need in order to empty out the hopper, and then we'll get the cover on and we'll be done. So let me get this plug in. Maybe you can't see me off camera. And then this is the chute I was talking about that I'll be using, and I'll actually rotate the grill so you can see it, and then the poker that I need in order to clean this out. So I'm gonna move that camera and I'll be right back. So as I was turning it around, I checked the grease box, right? Not a single drop of grease is inside of here, and I didn't clean it. Why is that? This thing does such a good job of keeping the juice in the chicken, and especially when you cook it with the skin on. No grease dripping all over the place, right? So again, the amount of times you actually have to clean this thing out because it's so massive, very, very seldomly, right? So I'm just gonna slide that back in. Again, super nice. Again, I should have just bought the grease box the first time around instead of spending extra money. But anyway, what I'm gonna do is get the bucket out. So again, one major knock, I wouldn't say major, but one knock on these grills, and a lot of them are the same, especially under, $1,500, is emptying out the hopper. So, I've come up with a pretty good strategy for it. And I'll show you, I'll take this bracket, not the bracket off, I'll just move the slide out of the way. I'm gonna put this chute, which actually isn't designed for the Z grill. It's actually designed for the Pit Boss. The Pit Boss doesn't have this nice slide. In fact, I think it's just wide open. I'm not quite sure how it operates. I don't own it, so I don't know. So I'll lose a few pellets showing you this right now, but I'll put the magnet here, I'll slide it under the hole, and then it's trying to clean out already, right? And you can fiddle with it, stick your finger in there, whatever, and it'll fall out and you can see it's going into the bucket just fine. What I like to do is, and again, I'm doing this on camera, so of course I'm gonna get it all over the place. But I'll actually put this as like a backstop. I'm gonna take this poker, and inside of the hopper, I'm just gonna keep scooping towards the hole, and I can clean this thing out in like 15 seconds. So it's gonna go fast and it's gonna be loud because the mic is right here. Right? So I'm just scooping away. And I have this cover, right, I have the bucket cover so that it doesn't get all over the place. Hopefully you can hear me. Oh, it got a little jam because I stopped scooping. But, you know, just going to town. And I put way too many pellets in this thing because I was just on camera and I just dumped a bunch in. So normally it doesn't even take me this long to clean out the hopper. And it's almost done. Yeah. So again, it usually doesn't take me that long to clean it out because usually I don't fill it up that much. But, you know, I just throw it in there. And then again, you just put it in the cabinet like everything else, which is pretty sweet, I have to say. Again, a lot of the, you know, $1,000, $1,500 grills, they don't have a cabinet. And it blows my mind that they're charging more money for less features and it's the same quality. It's wild. And again, Pit Boss might be a little thicker. Traeger has the name. But the Z grill, again, dollar for dollar, it's pretty sweet. So again, I'm just gonna wrap up the cords and then I'll show you the cover. Here we go, stand up. And again, there's links to all of this stuff. I'm only affiliated with the Z grill and the grease box. So all the other links, you know, feel free, you can shop around. You can certainly shop around for all this stuff, but they're mostly Amazon links, a couple Etsy links. Because some people like that chute that I was using is actually 3D printed by some guy on Etsy. And again, I use these caps because it just keeps things nice, right? And then the last thing is the cover. So I'll spin this grill around and we'll talk about the cover. So just spin it. Now, with all the things that Z grills give you, one thing it doesn't, so I have to knock them for this, is a freaking bungee cord. So this is what, about a 2-foot bungee cord? It didn't come with it, but this cover, which comes with it, right? Traeger charges $100 for a grill cover. It's ridiculous, right? I don't even know what Pit Boss costs, but you know, I've bought grill covers before. They're $50, they're $80 for something nice. So we got a nice thick one, and it even has grommets, right? So they take the extra time, but they don't give you bungees to hook the grommets to. It's silly. So, you know, it's a Z grill specific one, but any grill cover made for pellet grills will work. You know, we got a smokestack spout, just like that, right? Just had to adjust the camera. But anyway, so, you know, spout for the smokestack. This just goes over. Now, again, I was nervous when I first got the grease box that it was gonna be too large because it does stick out a little bit further than the smokestack here. But this being just a standard grill cover, right? It fits all the medium-sized Z grills. You know, you can see that there's the grease box here, but there's no tension here. You're right, it's not wrecking anything. Even when I hooked the grommet underneath, and I like to go at an angle, right? So I connect the front left one here to the back right one. Even as I'm doing this, there's this bungee, I just barely have any tension on it. It's just enough so that it pulls the skirt in a little bit so that, you know, wind and critters can't get in there once I find the hole. And then I just simply push it back, right? Now, what's cool with these caster wheels is, you know, they have brakes. So I can hit that and I don't have to worry about the wind. So again, the Z grill, I genuinely think, and again, I bought this with my own money months before I became an affiliate. I love this grill. I can cook anything with it. It adds so much flavor. I've been playing around with different pellets. Again, I like cherry and oak. I use cherry for just about everything except burgers and steak and beef. When I'm doing that, I use a blend. I use 60% oak, 40% cherry to get a little bit of that sweet cherry redness, but also a little bit more smokiness from the oak. Again, it's great. If you guys are food prepping, you can cook stuff on the back burner. You don't have to warm up your oven in the house. It's better than a gas grill for so many things, except if you really like a nice charred meat. But that's not really what the smoker is for. The smoker is to cook things low and slow and develop kind of a smoky bark to it, right? So even that chicken had just a very, very thin, almost like a crust to it, where it's not hard per se, but you can definitely tell it singed, not singed. It's hard to describe what it did to actually the meat, but it makes it so much better. Neighbor kid, yeah, no helmet, mini bike, it's great. Anyway, so again, if you guys are interested in getting the Z grill, again, the 700D6 Pro is the model that I have because it is in fact the best bang for your buck when it comes to pellet grills. It's great for intermediate people, for beginners. It comes with so many features. There's a few upgrades that I did that, you know, are negotiable, but some, in my opinion, aren't negotiable, like the main power cord cable holder. I really wish they would have put like a Velcro or a zip tie or whatever. Again, I got the magnetic thing. Link is in the description below. I am affiliated with Z Grill, so if you do end up buying something through my affiliate link, I do get a kickback. I do get a commission. I'm also affiliated with the Grease Box. Again, I bought these things before I became affiliated with it, and I like them so much, and I was so freaking jumping up and down excited that they said, yeah, sure, you can be an affiliate for us too. Again, the Z Grill, best bang for your buck. This is Josh from GarageGangGyms.com. I'll see you guys next time.